7 rings he gave to the dwarves, but to men he gave 9, for men proved in this matter as in others the readiest to his will. And all those rings that he governed he perverted, the more easily since he had a part in their making, and they were accursed, and they betrayed in the end all those that used them. The dwarves indeed proved tough and hard to tame. They ill endure the domination of others, and the thoughts of their hearts are hard to fathom, nor can they be turned to shadows. They use their rings only for the getting of wealth, but wrath and an overmastering greed of gold were kindled in their hearts, of which evil enough after came to the prophet of Sauron. It is said that the foundation of each of the 7 hoards of the dwarf kings of old was a golden ring, but all those hoards long ago were plundered, and the dragons devoured them, and of the 7 rings some were consumed in fire, and some Sauron recovered. Make sense so far? So that's what happens with the
Yeah, okay.
dwarf rings.
Yeah,
Men,
a lot of stuff. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of stuff happening there. Men proved easier to ensnare. Those who used the 9 rings became mighty in their days, kings, sorcerers, and warriors of old. They obtained glory and great wealth, yet it turned to their undoing. They had, as it seemed, unending life, yet life became unendurable to them. They could walk, if they would, unseen by all eyes in this world beneath the sun, and they could see things in worlds invisible to mortal men. But too often they beheld only the phantoms and delusions of Sauron. And one by one, sooner or later, according to their native strength and to the good or evil of their wills in the beginning, they fell under the thraldom of the ring that they bore, and under the domination of the one which was Sauron's. And they became forever invisible, save to him that wore the ruling ring, and they entered into the realm of shadows. The Nazgul were they, the ring raves, the enemy's most terrible servants. Darkness went with them, and they cried with the voices of death. Make sense there?
Yeah, wow.
So it would be interesting to see if they're going to show us the 7 dwarfs, because like I told you, this is only Durin's line so far we're seeing. It would be interesting to see what are the 9 men. Are they gonna flesh them out with actual characters? Because he doesn't really do that here. That would be interesting. You have 9 characters you can create.
Yeah.
Um, One of them becomes the Witch King, which is the most famous one from later on in the Lord of the Rings books. And the Witch King actually has quite a bit of history as the Witch King in the stories of Middle Earth in Arnor, because he's known as the Witch King of Angmar, so he does have a kingdom at some point. So there's something to play around with there. Who's that going to be? Now,
Okay.
Sauron's lust and pride increased until he knew no bounds, and he determined to make himself master of all things in Middle Earth, and to destroy the elves, and to compass, if he might, the downfall of Numenor. He brooked no freedom, nor any rivalry, and he named himself Lord of the Earth. Talk about balls, right?
Yeah, dude, just picked and choose.
He went from Lord
Oh, I'm the Lord now.
he went from Lord of Gifts to Lord of the Earth. A mask a
Yeah.
mask he still could wear, so that if he wished he might deceive the eyes of men, seeming to them wise and fair, but he ruled rather by force and fear, if they might avail. And those who perceived his shadow spreading over the world called him the Dark Lord, and named him the Enemy. And he gathered again under his government all the evil things of the days of Morgoth that remained on earth or beneath it, and the orcs were at his command, and multiplied like flies. So I guess I'm wrong. They can multiply, but I don't.
Oh, see, there.
But I mean,
Actually, like flies, so that's even like
isn't
more.
that like a queen? Don't fly. Isn't there like an ant? They have a queen fly. Is that how flies multiply?
No, no.
No.
Flies, no. Flies have swarms, actually, in which they just mate for a bunch of times.
They
They
what?
they they swarm.
Oh,
They swarm
ew.
with and
It's
and
like an orgy.
have mating flies. Basically,
And
that's why you can get fruit fly eggs and you don't notice because the flies are already pregnant. They just need to lay the eggs.
okay, okay. Ew.
You know?
Gross, gross. So I guess orcs.
Yeah.
I guess
Ew.
orcs do that. They like lay eggs then. Anyway, they multiplied like
I mean, I
flies.
don't know. I don't know.
Does the black? Does the?
I think it.
Go ahead.
I think it means just that they multiply very fast. Like, it's like saying like rabbits, but flies are gross, and
I've
so
never
are
used, I've
orcs.
never heard the
So
word flies. Usually you say like you multiply like rabbits or
yeah.
multiply.
I like yes, same.
I
But
think they're using insects because maybe they are like, I don't know. I don't know, man. It's disgusting
I
too.
don't know
You're
either.
right. Thus the black years began, which the elves called the days of flight. In that time many of the elves of Middle Earth fled to Lindon, and thence over the seas, never to return. And many were destroyed by Sauron and his servants. But in Lindon, Gil-galad still maintained his power, and Sauron dared not as yet to pass the mountains of Ered Luin, nor to assail the havens. And Gil-galad was aided by the Númenóreans. So there is already supposed to be a relationship between Gil-galad and the Númenóreans. There's supposed to be one. But we haven't seen that at all. They don't. In fact, he doesn't seem to talk to them. So this doesn't. That
What? Yeah.
elsewhere,
Why would they skip on that?
because they suck. Elsewhere, Sauron reigned, and those who would be free took refuge in the fastnesses of wood and mountain, and ever fear pursued them. So everyone's afraid. Everyone's gonna be afraid of this guy that you see on the screen. In the east and south, well nigh all men were under his dominion. And they grew strong in those days, and built many towns and walls of stone. And they were numerous and fierce in war, and armed with iron. To them Sauron was both king and god. And they feared him exceedingly, for he surrounded his abode with fire. Yet there came,
Not the fire.
Yet there came at length a stay in the onslaught of Sauron upon the Westlands, for as is told in the Akalabeth, which I didn't read that, that's the other story, which is what I told you about how he dies, he was challenged by the might of Númenor. So great was the power and splendor of the Númenóreans in the noontide of their realm, that the servants of Sauron would not withstand them, and hoping to accomplish by cunning what he could not achieve by force, he left Middle-earth for a while, and went to Númenor as a hostage of Tar Kalion, the king, which is, I believe, the guy we just saw, Pharazôn, I think. And there
Okay.
he abode until at last, by his craft, he had corrupted the hearts of most of that people, and set them at war with the Valar, and so compassed their ruin as he had long desired. But that ruin was more terrible than Sauron had foreseen, for he had forgotten the might of the lords of the West in their anger. The world was broken, and the land was swallowed up, and the seas rose over it, and Sauron himself went down into the abyss, like I told you. But his spirit, okay? But his spirit arose and fled back on a dark wind to Middle Earth, seeking a home. There he found, so he's a spirit now. There he found that the power of
Okay.
Gil-galad had grown great in the years of his absence, and it was spread now over wide regions of the north and west, and had passed beyond the misty mountains and the great river even to the borders of Greenwood the Great, and was drawing nigh to the strong places where once he had dwelt secure. Then Sauron withdrew to his fortress in the Black Land and meditated war. We following that so far?
Yeah.
So at that point, he doesn't have a body. He's a spirit form, and he's looking for somewhere to figure out what he's gonna do. And coming back to Middle Earth because he was in Numenor for a while before he died, and he managed to make it sink, but died with it. And during that time, in the meantime, because he wasn't in Middle Earth, there was nobody to lead the the, the bad guys, and so Gil-galad spread pretty far in the north and the west in terms of bringing goodness to the land. In that time,